What's going on, everybody? Malik here, and welcome to my review of The Woman King, where a 5'6", 100-pound woman can judo throw a 6'2", 220-pound man with little to no effort. This ahistorical fantasy that was advertised as inspired by true events is actually not as bad as I thought it was going to be. It's not that bad of a movie as simply just a movie, like an entertainment movie, right? Although I still have many gripes with this movie and the decisions made in this movie, I still think that the movie somewhat delivered as being an entertaining experience. Only plausible if you ignore the historical aspects or certain historical aspects in this movie. As a historical movie that says it's based on true events or inspired by true events, I think that there's a lot to unpack there. So we will get to that. Now, because of the split that I had to create in my head in order to watch this movie without my historical knowledge sensors just exploding, just watching all the ahistorical things happening, I'm going to do a split review. So that means that I'm going to rate this movie as just, a form of entertainment, fair judgment, form of entertainment, as viewing it as a historical fiction. Which it is. I will also do a spoiler full section where I will cover a lot of the historical inaccuracies and things that bothered me about the film that are full of spoilers. So we're going to begin with the ahistorical fantasy that is this movie, and we're going to begin with the things I disliked about this movie as a form of entertainment, fake movie fully, you know what I'm saying? We're going to begin with that side, the non-spoilers and all that. So let's get into it. Now, time to trigger people, because every man in this movie, except for two of them, and even then they're still seen as like kind of problematic, they're all misogynist. Every single one of them.
Ah! You slapped me, you monkey!
Marry me.
Now, this movie also suffers from some examples of really lazy writing, because there is a character in this film that is shocked at seeing slaves at the slave port when their job is transporting slaves. What happened, writing team? Now, I know they did this to probably try to get us to see like a sort of conflict in this very special character, but at the same time, it doesn't make sense given that character's occupation and what they're doing there. And really, now that I think about it, a lot of the bad writing kind of centers around this character. And another example of that is that this character gets guilt tripped by a character whose kingdom runs entirely on slaves. Well, they try to guilt trip this guy for partaking in the slave trade. Now, I'm leaving my personal opinions out of this. Is a movie review. I'm not putting my personal opinions into this. I'm simply just pointing out how lazy the writing is, in particular surrounding this particular character, because they want to show some kind of inner conflict with this character in particular. You'll see what I mean when I get to the spoiler section. So a decision that kind of confused me a bit about how they decided to go about showing blood in this movie is very inconsistent to me. And I don't know why some movies do this now, but I don't know if they have a limited amount of blood, or they have a million takes or something like that, so they don't want to get blood on the actors, fake blood obviously on the actors to because that'll ruin their chance of shooting again. Maybe that's it, I don't know. But this movie doesn't have a lot of it, but at some points it does show it, some points it doesn't. I don't know, it's just inconsistent, and to me that bothers me, because it's either you show it or you don't show it. But anyway, I guess also that helped them out, because maybe they wanted to get more of an audience, so that maybe they wanted some younger viewers and stuff to see the movie, so maybe that's why they didn't want to show blood in every action scene. Now, the combat choreography, let me just say that not every fight scene in this movie is terrible. But as someone who trains in martial arts and also, wanted to get into filmmaking at one point, and maybe in the future I will, but anyway, some of the action in this movie is literally straight from Black Panther. And it's kind of cringe, because this is, again, there's nothing in this movie that suggests that, from the writing, let's look at the writing department again. If you were going to do this, this way, then we have to play the game. So if we're going to play the game, there should have been some sort of pretense to this movie or establishment at some point in the movie that this is, there is some kind of supernatural ability given to some of these women warriors that allowed them to do all these Dora Milaje stuff. Okay, enough about the bad, poor decisions or poor writing things that I observed in this film. Let's get into some of the positives that I actually liked, that were good decisions that I wish we would have seen more of in this film. Now, right off the bat, let me just say, I'm going to go off with my favorite part of this movie, actually. Has nothing to do with the plot, has nothing to do with the acting, has nothing to do with the characters, nothing to do with nothing. Has to do with the establishing shots. All the establishing shots of the kingdom where people are just doing regular things. People are working, on the palm trees. They're making clothes. They're selling things in the market. They're running around, having fun, doing village stuff or kingdom stuff in this case. That is very beautiful to see in an African setting, because you hardly ever see that, especially trying to depict a historical part of Africa. You don't really see that. So I'm glad that this movie decided to make some of these shots and make the atmosphere of this kingdom feel very real. And I really did appreciate that. Another thing I appreciated about this movie is that everyone in this movie is really trying to act their ass off. And it works for almost everybody. Some people, questionable, but for the most part, everybody's doing a pretty damn good job acting their ass off for this film. Although I will have something to say about, the authenticity of some of the costume choices in this movie, let me just say that for the most part, the quality of the clothing among the average person in this film is done very well. And shout out to the costume department for doing their thing, because the clothes that they're wearing in this movie look really good. And I'm glad that they took the time to, make the clothes look good and good quality. Another thing I can commend them for from a filmmaking standpoint is that the shaky cam is non-existent. I would say that, yes, it is more obvious that the fights are choreographed because there is no shaky cam, but at the same time, I would actually prefer that as opposed to the camera shaking everywhere. I can't even see what's going on. I would not want to watch a movie like that. I would want to watch a movie, where I can see what's happening, even if it is, fully choreographed. That's fine. I'd much rather prefer that than shaky cam every 5 seconds that they're fighting. Now, before I get into my rating of this film from a purely entertaining standpoint, because at the end of the day, that's what this is a form of entertainment, whether it's trying to be historical or not, that's what it is. So I think that this movie is fairly enjoyable if you are not, trying to view it through a historical lens. And I would just say to everybody that does go to watch this movie, if you do decide to watch this movie, just understand that this is a historical fantasy. Despite the marketing, despite what, they tried to pull off on you, try to make you believe that this is all 100% authentic. Please don't do that, or close to 100% authentic, because no historical movie is 100% authentic. But that's okay. Point is, turn the historical brain off and just watch it for what it is. It's a pretty decent movie, apart from a few, missteps. But I'm going to go ahead and give this movie, from an entertaining standpoint, a 7 out of 10. So now that you've seen my rating for this movie as simply entertainment and all that, I would suggest for you to not watch this next section. We are going to get into the spoilers, and we're going to get into the historical things that bother me about this movie. So if you have not seen the movie yet and you plan on watching the movie, then go ahead and click off this video. I appreciate you for watching up to now, and I hope that you come back and watch the rest of the video and after you've seen it, if you decide to see it, or if you're not going to watch it and you want to know what's wrong with this movie, then keep watching. Okay, so let's rewind the tape back to the beginning of the film. So before anything is established about this movie being a supernaturally inspired movie or fantasy or whatever, we see the main group of protagonists flinging around their enemies like they're weightless, pretty much, just doing whatever they want to them. I mean, goddamn, I wish I could do that to people. And I'm 5'10", 200 pounds, and I train quite a lot, but yet I would have difficulty doing these things. And I know it's a movie, but still, I would like for movies to be a little more grounded, especially if they're going to have a so-called historical pretense. Remember how I said that some of the scenes in this movie are basically like ripped from Black Panther? Well, right here at the beginning of the movie, there is a certain finisher that a character performs that is literally a Black Panther thing. This person has claws, and they flip a man over, weightless man, flip him over, and takes out the cat claws, and then stabs him right in the face. Right now, if this happened, I feel like there would be some kind of information about this. As far as I have studied, we'll get into the weapons that the Agoge had available to them, but none of which I have ever seen have ever been mentioned to be cat claws or cat-like claws. This is just like ripped from Black Panther, and it's really cringe, especially at the beginning of the movie. Now, I feel like if it's 2022 and people are still afraid to read subtitles, then that is very dumb of you, because this movie should have had subtitles. Why are they speaking English? Why does everybody have a really bad accent when they are trying to speak English, or they are speaking English, but it's just really cringe, and it ruins the parts of the movie. Because for you, the audience, the way that they make it so that you understand that they are speaking the language of the Dahomey, or that the Yoruba are speaking the Yoruba language, or whatever. It's not that they speak the language. They are literally out here just talking like this. And there are some characters in this movie that do a very poor job at implementing this accent for you to think that they are speaking Dahomey or that they are speaking Yoruba. It is not done very well. It is quite embarrassing, I would say. More so in particular, once the mixed dude starts speaking in the accent, it just check out, bruv. Because if they would have spoke the language, it would have been way more believable. Because this guy is here, talking like this. My mother was from Dahomey. It's just very cringe. They should have just taught the actors the language, or at least, gave them the lines, and then, just add the subtitles later saying what they really say. And again, if you're an audience member, you're not willing to read subtitles, bro, what are you doing? There's so many movies out there that are great that, speak different languages, and it works. Just read the goddamn subtitle. So quite early on in this film, my historical senses got very triggered, because apparently guns, let me just say, this movie supposedly takes place about 1827, 1830, around there. That is when the Dahomey successfully deviated from the Oyo Empire, in which they paid tribute to and were subjugated by for an extended period of time. Again, this is 1830. The Agoge used guns. As a matter of fact, they were known to drill consistently, and actually there are accounts of Dahomey warriors, or I should say Agoge, because that is the women warriors, that could actually load a flintlock musket 20 seconds faster than the average infantry man of the Dahomey military. So why are the Agoge saying that guns are like frowned upon or whatever? And at this point in time, they're going against the Oyo Empire, which had plenty of guns and also had an extended cavalry. Now, the Dahomey didn't have a cavalry, but they did have a lot of guns, and they practiced a lot with those guns. They practiced covering fire, they practiced flanking maneuvers, they practiced straight up charge and shoot. They shot on command. And also, not to mention, they had a total of 25 cannons that they used in battle, none of which are presented in this film. The Dahomey don't have any cannons in this film, and they don't like to use guns. The Agoge in particular don't like to use guns. Only the infantry men are privileged to have guns in the Dahomey. No, the Agoge use guns, bro. Agoje used guns, and they were arguably better at using them guns because they trained so much more than some of the infantrymen, if not, who knows, maybe most of the infantrymen. So what's up with that? Now, there's a few sections also in this movie where the Dahomey sit down and they question their role in slavery. Now, King Gezo, who is in this film, did come at a certain crossroads in which he wanted to kind of move away from that himself and wanted to export other goods. However, let it be known that Gezo's effort to do so was often repulsed by the Dahomey because they refused, by public opinion, they refused to stop participating in the slave trade because it was that profitable that they could not see their kingdom live without it. So why are they sitting here like people are questioning Gezo about slavery when Gezo was the one that, proposed certain ideas? Not saying that he wasn't an abolitionist, he wasn't against slavery, but he wanted to try something else, and public opinion of his own people was against that same judgment. Another cap part of this movie is a line that Gezo says, and I quote, "No other part of Africa has the privilege of having woman warriors." This is cap, my friend. As a matter of fact, many parts of Africa have had woman warrior queens, such as Queen Amanirenas, who defeated the Romans and stopped their venture into the Nile River Valley. The one-eyed warrior queen who lost her son at battle and was still able to repel the Romans from further invading into the Nile River Delta in North Africa. Or Queen Ana Nzinga from Angola, who freaking this movie should have been about. And we'll get to the title of the movie later. But Hollywood, you literally had your work cut out for you. You didn't have to add anything. You didn't have to do anything else. You literally had the perfect setup for what you would have liked to do if you wanted to virtue signal. And honestly, actually, no, don't disrespect Queen Ana Nzinga like that. Just saying, theoretically, Ana Nzinga repelled the Portuguese for 30 years, leading men into battle. And she had multiple husbands, and she went into battle in full armor, just as any man a part of her kingdom would. And she led the army into battle. That's a badass woman right there. And guess what? She's from a part of Africa. And there have been many other women and queens in Africa, or rulers in Africa, that have in fact led armies. Now, let me not get ahead of myself and trivialize what the Dahomey actually had in the Agoje, which was an all-exclusive women warrior unit that was specifically under the king's orders and no one else. Yes, that is something unique. So I guess it's kind of a half point. But the point is that there have been many women warriors in Africa before. Maybe not the entire unit or the entire garrison entirely comprised of women, but there have been many warrior women in Africa. Then this movie makes another big cap that the Dahomey were apparently looking to potentially have a woman ruler. Now, for those of you that don't know, the Dahomey had a patriarchal monarchy. That means the first son was the inherited ruler of the Dahomey. And in this movie, I don't know, to me it's a little unclear. Maybe I wasn't paying attention, but it made it seem as if basically Naniska basically made it seem like Naniska was going to become the next ruler. And that is cap, because the next ruler of the Dahomey after Gezo was Glele, who was his firstborn son, his eldest son, that succeeded him. And they were all male rulers after that, to the very end, till they became part of the French. Of course, there were women in high positions of power, such as general and other political figures, but never a overall ruler of the Dahomey was a woman. Never. Another thing that was kind of weird to me was that the Dahomey basically became race conscious And this is all proposed by Naniska also, which is weird because, again, like I mentioned previously, Gezo was the one that was trying to like maybe see if they could do something a little bit different, because he didn't want to sell people that lived within the Dahomey territory. They only wanted to sell people from outside of the Dahomey lands, and potentially make profit off of the palm oil industry. In the movie, they use this as like, basically, like, they become racist, kind of like, oh, we are selling Africans, we cannot sell Africans, this is bad, they are going to keep taking Africans. This is just serious cap, because the Dahomey profited off the slave trade from the beginning to the end. Now, the mixed guy, again, let's bring him up. This guy speaking in the accent was really cringe. I had to make note of it because it was just exceptionally cringe. And like I mentioned previously, everybody's acting their asses off. He tried really hard, but I wasn't buying it. And the accent thing just made it even worse. They should have just had him speak the language or speak the lines in the language. And as I mentioned earlier, there's more judo throwing men, but this time even larger men. There's a part in the final test where there's literally like 300-pound dudes, 320-pound, 40-pound dudes, big ass dudes, 6'2", 6'4", whatever, wearing hardwood masks, like thick ass, big ass hardwood masks. This girl freaking judo throw she's the smallest girl. She's like 5'5", like maybe 100 pounds. Judo throws one of these giant dudes and then runs up and Superman punches this guy and breaks his wooden mask. The whole helmet just, and he falls to the ground. Oh, bruh. That was cap. Again, fighting department, like you did pretty good. Fighting choreography, you did pretty good in this movie, but that was horrible. That was really fucking bad. I'm sorry. Also, the characters I was talking about earlier, again, makes no sense that Nawe was trying to guilt trip Malik about slavery when the Dahomey, again, literally were super slavers. Super slavers. The Agoje super slavers. That's what they did, and they were fucking good at it. So it makes no sense that she's trying to guilt trip this man about it, when her job is literally to capture, is gonna be, partially, really mostly to capture slaves for them to sell. Also, there's a really stupid move in this movie. Really, really bad move. Again, fighting choreography. What were y'all thinking? This is not nor historical nor logical even. Somebody tell me about this Black Panther ass move that is not real at all, because you would die probably immediately. You either get shot or you get stabbed right in your intestines, and they would be leaking all over the place, because this move literally exposes the most vulnerable part of your body for a prolonged period of time, even if that prolonged period of time is only a few seconds. I know I'm rambling, but just stay with me, okay? So this move right here, well, they jump up like this. That will get you killed immediately. If I see that on the battlefield, I'm shooting you right there, or I'm throwing something at you. I'm gonna stab you, bro. You expose your whole body right there. Again, when you say you're inspired by real events, real history, all that, these are the little details you should probably pay attention to and try to do correctly. Now, also in line with that move, there is another part of this movie where there's a machete on a rope and she's swinging it around like Shao Jun from Assassin's Creed, just like rope dart. That's cap, bro. I'm pretty sure if that happened, there would be like statues of this, man, because there are statues of women warriors in Benin today, yet they depict a woman with a gun and a sword on the hip, but she's holding a gun. That's what they were using in this time period. Also, let me touch on this. So the Agoje are seen as like these master hand-to-hand combatants that can do anything, kick everybody's ass, all that, with a machete, with a spear, and all that. Again, this is 1830, bruh. And again, as I previously mentioned, the Agoje were exceptional with firearms. So again, why the majority of the movie they don't have firearms at all? As a matter of fact, let me just skip over to this. But an Agoje only fires a gun one time. one time in the entire film. Wow. Also, interestingly enough, to the apparently the ethical code of the Agoge, or their moral superiority of the Agoge, they, you know, guns are frowned upon, but it's okay to make landmines and blow people up. Consistency, I guess. Gunpowder bad in gun, but good for big bombs. You know, I don't know. That didn't make any sense to me. Now, after this happens in the movie, literally everything after that is just straight cap. The homie burned down a slave port, and apparently that leads them to become abolitionists, but they continue to make money off of slavery anyway for years after this movie supposedly takes place. So I'm confused. Another thing that I thought was worth mentioning is that apparently the character that Nanisca is inspired by is a woman named Sedong Hong Bae, who was born in 1835. So that's like kind of after this movie take place. So that's confusing if you're saying your movie is inspired by true events. Overall, I would say that this is not the worst historical movie I've ever seen. However, I will say that my historical rating of this movie would be a solid 4 out of 10. That's the highest I can give it, because there's just so many things that are unforgivable, especially the fact that, again, the Agoge used guns and they were very good at using guns. So I don't understand why this movie, you know, had to show these women being like overtly, I don't know if it's done with that purpose, but it's like overtly masculine with the machetes and that. I'm not saying that they never used machetes. Like I said, they had swords, but at this point in time they preferred the use of guns, and some of them carried swords or daggers, but for the most part this was rifle combat, musket combat. That's what was being done in this point in time. So again, that's kind of unforgivable. Sorry, like Agoge without guns is not really Agoge. So my final thoughts here: I really hope that this movie and its reception do not ruin historical fiction or historical representative movies of African kingdoms in the future. So that is very unfortunate if this movie, doesn't do very well, and that stigmatizes, anything centering African history or African kingdoms. I hope that doesn't necessarily happen. But again, if you're looking at this movie for a historical reenactment or historical representation, unfortunately it's not done very well, or as well as it could have been. In the future, I really want to see more people tackle African history and African kingdoms, but done authentically. Don't interject things from the modern age. Don't interject your own personal views on things and all that. Just make a historical film, do the research, and try to make it as good as possible. That's all I really ask for. And I think that's what a lot of people want. We don't really want to be bombarded with political messages and all that. Just give us a historical movie as is, and we should learn to appreciate it. If this movie was not titled The Woman King, if this movie didn't say it was inspired by true events, would have been a completely different story, really, as far as audience reception and how it's been received by some people. I know most people that watch it like it, but again, when you're looking at it from a historical sense, you alienate a lot of people, and it's just not very good for African kingdoms and African history overall in film. So yeah, I hope that this movie, maybe, I wouldn't say learn a lesson, but in the grand scheme of things, I hope that directors in the future that tackle African stories tend to do so with more care and with more respect to the authenticity of the period and the kingdom and the people. But anyway, that's all I have to say, guys. I appreciate you for watching. I gotta go to bed. I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.